Good afternoon. We are just really excited about having you all join us again every week for our live streams. And we really hope that we're really helping families become better families. And we're really hoping that our parents are beginning to utilize some of the strategies we talked about each week. It's kind of amazing that the summertime is already here and we're just about to almost go into the fall as appears. We'll be saying Merry Christmas very soon. I am going to wait until Jackie gets on before we start the program tonight. I am going to sort of like give the announcements. I do want to share that we are still accepting donations. We've asked every week. This is our National Month of Giving, the foundation. We're asking y'all to donate to us. We're asking you to make a small contribution, any size. It will show your appreciation to us for the work that we do every week for the last year, bringing these programs to you live every Tuesday night. Also, I want to share that we've started an alumni association, and I've been in this business for more than 25 years now and helped a lot of young people. And some of those young people now are mayors of cities. They now are doctors, lawyers, they are accountants, and so forth. So we want to make sure that you guys help us join the alumni. Again, Jackie was going to talk more about that later on, how you can become part of the alumni. The whole purpose is for you to begin to give us on a recurring basis. Those people, those young people who are not quite so young anymore. They were like 15 when I knew them. Now they're 45 and they're 30. So they're much, much older. So at this point, we want to simply have them to have an opportunity to give back to us, So we're very, very proud of that. And folks, they've been very responsive. We've had about maybe 15 that have responded so far, which is great for us. It's making our National Month of Giving a success. So we're looking forward to that. I do want to introduce myself, and Jackie, she will be on with us shortly. My name is Dr. Willie Miles. I am the president of Dr. Willie Miles Children's Foundation, located right here in Atlanta, Georgia. And for you who are first-time viewers, both on Instagram and on Facebook Live, we do want to make you aware that we are a 501c3 organization located in Atlanta, and our whole goal is to make children our priority. And those of you who know me know that I'm also a therapist, so most of my time is spent counseling adults who are in trauma, and of course, children and adolescents. So that is what I do, and the foundation's goal is to make children our priority. For this past month, folks, we've been doing this for almost a year now, and some of you guys have been faithful followers. Every week you're on with us on Tuesday nights. This month we had June 8th, we had school in the summertime. Does it really help students? Pros and cons. And we sort of determined that it does help. We want to make sure our students are getting as much as they can get before the summertime. And of course, last year it was the COVID pandemic had us all locked up, basically. So many of our children simply didn't do well last year. They did not do well last year, and parents were trying to get them into programs this year in the summertime and to make some time up. And we decided there are some pros to it and there are some cons to it. On June 15th, we had a program that the topic was, I had problems in school. Now my child has problems in school. I feel responsible. And many parents think that their children's behavior is because of their behavior. Well, could be. But in that case, it is not. Some of the behaviors kids have are due to their own situations and their own illnesses and their own environment. So can parents' behaviors be transported to children? Yeah, but not genetically. I mean, the whole point is that children watch what you do versus listen to what you say. Children watch what you do versus listening to what you say. On June 22nd, which was last week, we talked about autism. And we found out a lot about that on the autism spectrum. We got plenty of comments of parents once we signed off. One grandfather said his grandchild was just diagnosed with on the autism spectrum, and they were just very excited they got the information from us. We talked extensively about autism and what are some myths about autism. We talked about what parents can do to help their children who are autistic. All right. And of course, tonight's topic. Tonight's topic is one that people are very, very interested in. And it is, my child does not respect authority. My child does not respect authority. I know none of you all listening tonight have that kind of problem. I know your children are just wonderful and they're listening to everything you say do, and they're following all your instructions, and they're just perfect children. Yeah, right. There are no perfect children. There are no perfect people. Oftentimes, as parents, we start asking for perfection and looking for perfection, but realizing that our children are just children. So, folks, get ready. Why do our children not respect authority? Why do our children not respect authority? Do any of you all relate to that? Do any of you all who are watching tonight on both live on Facebook and on Instagram, have you seen that anywhere where children just don't respect anyone? Well, there are some reasons why that happens. And parents, I want to share with you all that you play a very important part in that. Now, we're not into blaming parents. We're about making sure that parents understand the causative factors. You know, what causes children to behave the way they behave. And I think we all can agree, and also research supports this, that all behaviors, of course, are learned. All behaviors are learned. So our topic tonight is why our children don't respect authority. So I'm going to give you like a little historical perspective first, just a little history about by what happens when children don't respect authority. You know, during any given year, about 2.1 million children under the age of 18 are arrested in the United States. Are arrested in the United States. 2.1 million children are arrested in the United States. And many of them are delinquency cases, 1.7 million. So the question we have is, well, children who don't respect authority, being arrested, good possibility. And usually it is. Usually children don't respect any authority. Let's talk about who considered authority. Parents are considered authority. Teachers are considered authority. Ministers are considered authority. Police officers are considered authority. So we have a bunch of folk who are considered authorities. Our children just don't respect for whatever reason. We'll talk about that. Hi, Jack. I'm glad you made it on tonight.
Good evening, Dr. Miles. Yes, I'm happy to be here as well, and apologies for logging on late. How are you?
Hey, stuff happens. Stuff happens. We're just going to make do what we got here, and glad you're on. We're into the topic at this point, and that is, my child does not respect authority. And I'm talking about like, who do children see as authority? And children see authority figures as anyone basically who gives them instructions.
Okay.
Parents, teachers, police officers, ministers. And parents, it's kind of interesting that oftentimes our children will develop an attitude about these folk based upon your attitude about them.
Absolutely. I was waiting on that one, and I don't know how often parents, kind of own that and accept that. And sometimes it's even indirect because, of course, parents may be speaking about authority figures in the presence of young children, and they just, obviously feel that they can adopt those same views.
Yeah, and I'm not talking not even just young children. They'd be in the car cussing police officers out with teenagers in the car.
True.
And they want to figure out why he doesn't respect authority.
Mm-hmm.
And Jack, as we began to plan for tonight's program, what's kind of interesting is the first thing that jumps out in the information. It says that if your child's disrespectful, maybe you are helping that.
Yeah, and you know why that's kind of hard to overlook, Dr. Miles, is because parents, of course, have a responsibility to teach their children respect for all authority figures, as you pointed out, older family members, their educators, people in their churches, older people in the community. So when you get to the point where you're talking about law enforcement and other, again, authority figures, if your child does not respect that, where else could we look but to the parents?
And again, as we said before, we're not here to blame. We're here to help you. And Jackie, this these models don't start when the child is 12 years old.
Oh
We
no.
said that the child's behavior, his character is set by age 3.
Right. Right. There are a lot of things in there by age 3 and certainly by age 6, where it's almost like to change it, you've got to break a mold, you know.
Well,
So, but
yeah.
I think it is important to, as you did, to point out that these things happen very early on. Like your child doesn't just start being around you at the age of 10 or 12. By that point, they have been around you for 10 or 12 years, and whatever it is you are communicating, they picked it up.
And not just that, it's also the interaction that parents, so we got to talk about this developmentally, the interactions the parent has with the child. The parent is very permissive, and and then when the child is, like 3 and 4 years old and 2 years old, and there's no guidelines, there's no rules, and the child hits adults, and the adults laugh at it, and the child running slams doors, and people think that's cute, or the child calls some adult a name, they think that's cute, or the child slaps or hits an adult, and parents think that's cute and says he's just a child. Well, that child is going to grow up to be an adult
Quicker than you can imagine.
and a teenager with those same kind of behaviors, and our society is simply not going to allow it. So we have some parents who allow that stuff and think they're doing positive parenting.
Yeah, unfortunately, Dr. Miles, I can't really figure out how they figure that's positive parenting. If you mean that people confuse teaching a child to speak and speak up for themselves and to express things, if people are getting that confused with respecting authority or how they interact with authority, then that's obviously a really big mistake.
Well, again, when we talk about mistakes, this whole thing about this respect thing is determined really by parents, because there are some parents who believe in this, this equalitarian thing that we're all human beings and children are little humans, so therefore, they have a right to express themselves, say what they want to say and how they want to say it without parent intervention. Now, if that's your thing, fine. I'm just simply saying, don't start complaining
when you have to deal with the consequences
right,
related
exactly,
to that being your thing.
exactly.
Right. And I'm not going to say just the society we live in today, because honestly, it hasn't changed. It's always been this way. But perhaps what we're missing, Dr. Miles, is that the first authority figure in every child's life is the parent.
Mm-hmm.
And so again, if the parent is allowing the child to speak in a way that doesn't even respect them as parents or respect them as parents, then, we're not often surprised if they don't respect other quote unquote authority figures. And, again, I like to expand that term because, we were taught to respect, honestly, anyone older than us, and that would show up in the form of yes, ma'am, yes, sir, and things like that. And to this day, I know you do it because I've seen you do it, as well as myself, when we're dealing with people who are older than us. If people are older than you, then they've come before you, they've dealt with things, and typically in your life, they're there to help you. So respect is really a very basic concept.
Well, one of our viewers wrote that I have a 13-year-old foster child that thinks she can do what she wants to do and not go to jail because she's too young. Well, tell her they're putting 7-year-olds in handcuffs and 6-year-olds in
Yeah.
handcuffs. And we're not trying to scare her, but what she's saying basically is that you can't do anything to me. And
So
of
I can act
course,
any way I want to act.
right. And of course, that is not the truth. And they're in foster care. So let me talk a little about that first. There's simply the case about being in foster care and being disrespectful and not respecting authority. Now, children in foster care have their own set of issues. Of course, the trauma first. And so this could be a way of her lashing out. One thing we've learned, Jackie, is that, and not just with foster children, but trying to lash back out at them doesn't work.
Correct.
So we have to model the behavior. And I would take that as a teaching moment. But not only a teaching moment, but evidently the child is hurting. Evidently this child is lashing out at you and our institutions because she really wants to lash out at the ones who have her in foster care, which are her parents.
And
So,
of course, they're not around, which is why
right.
she's in foster care.
So you're the one that's there that is taking the brunt of this. But, and I should not should say, but I want to share that I also teach folk that when you make any emotional decision, it's going to be the wrong decision. So you can't get angry with her and start saying all manner of things, because you're angry, because you're only feeding it. You're only
Right.
feeding it. Now, I hope I've sort of like addressed that a little. The point is that we know there are consequences to all behaviors. There are
Right.
consequences. Share with her what I just shared with you. Many of the kids who do not respect authority end up going to jail. There's 2.1 million every year that are arrested. And those children who are arrested have been disrespectful to someone, or they would not be being locked up.
Right. And Dr. Miles, I'm hoping for some of our some of the people who are on with us, they actually had several TV shows on that dealt with children who simply had no respect for authority and how that was being dealt with in our criminal justice system. Some of those go back, to the 1980s when there was a show called Scared Straight. And then even recently in the 90s and the 2000s, they've had other shows where kids were just out of control. So you mentioned earlier that there was a young lady who thought she was too young to be arrested. So again, no such thing, and certainly if you're a teenager. But you also mentioned something that I wanted to reiterate, which is intentional parenting. When you say that lashing back out at a child who's lashing out is not strategy, that requires intentional parenting. Do you know what I mean? That requires a parent, hopefully, who's attending some of these sessions and who knows the difference, who knows the child that is just, not respecting authority, or a child that is in pain and hurting. And in order to deal with that properly, they have to be educated.
Yeah, what I want to do, I want to, again, some people are just logging on to us. I'm Dr. Willie Miles. I'm the president of Dr. Willie Miles Children Foundation, located right here in Atlanta, Georgia. Jackie, introduce yourself again, please.
I am Jacqueline Hampton Clemens, located in Fort Lauderdale, Florida.
So some of the data, Jackie, we're seeing is that, and I'm saying the foundation to the disrespect, is that girls have a tendency to be arrested more than boys. They end up getting into the juvenile system at a rate much more than boys, and they are least likely to be detained. So the message is girls can be disrespectful and violate rules. They will be brought in, usually not detained. Boys do the same thing. They are detained.
Right. And so the message is that girls can get away with it, which again may be why someone mentioned that earlier. But I think, Dr. Miles, it's important to point out that we're probably talking about first arrest and
again,
first and second offenses.
Yeah, what I want to share, Jackie, is I want to share this piece, and that is, and I don't want to say they got away with it, because the mere fact of the arrest can be traumatizing. Are you with me? They're not detained. They may have gone to a diversion program. They may have gotten some consequences. But we're saying that when boys are, they get a direct consequence. So
and
I don't think
they're more likely to be detained.
Right. I don't think they get away with it. I think they have other programs, and we now have more programs for boys that are diversion programs, and usually it's for the first offense, even the second, third offense. The critical things don't happen until the child becomes chronic. And the reason we're sharing this information, we're trying to show you what the end of being disrespectful can end up for a child.
Right. And I think it's important, Dr. Miles, and I know we'll get to this, to talk about, because we're talking about consequences right now, but then, talking about some of the strategies and how parents can actually deal with it. Because to your point, this is not going to show up the first time with police officers. This is showing up in the home, showing up in school, long before it's a legal issue. So what are some of the things that, our parents should be doing? Maybe signs that there may be an issue, some early signs, and then some early responses.
You take me to the end of the program in the middle, and I ain't ready to go there yet. I ain't ready to go there yet. I'm still wanting to talk about the foundational things. I want to talk about like the things that are happening what could happen in the end. And I think where you're headed, where you're trying to get me to go to, is looking at the child development piece that says what can be done early on to prevent some of this stuff, right?
That's exactly right.
That
Yes.
where you're headed, yeah.
Right.
So,
And also knowing again some of the signs.
right. Well, uh, the sign's gonna be obvious. When the 3-year-old tell you go and F yourself, that's really disrespectful. All right. So,
Okay.
though,
Right. Those
the,
are kind of obvious. But you
the,
know
the,
what, Dr. Miles, doesn't it also start with more subtle signs? I mean, the simple, pick up your stuff. No.
mhm. Well,
Right?
I'll share with you now, and the answer to that is yes. But you're going to find that some of that stuff is developmental. It's almost like not being able to diagnose a child with autism because it's developmental. So
Right.
some of the children, like most children who are going through the stage of development, all kids who go through it, one of their favorite words is going to be no. But it's part of the parent's responsibility to sort of like help frame that.
Right. And it's also an age issue.
Of course.
By the time you're first, second, third grade and you're told to do something by a parent, a teacher, and your answer is no, again, that's a sign that there may be a lack of respect for authority.
And I'm going to back it up a little bit. I'm going to even say at age 4, because the no is only acceptable to age 2. When you start getting beyond age 2, that saying, tell what you're not going to do, it's not acceptable. It should be unacceptable. And there's no negotiating, and parents have to talk to their children. Oftentimes the parent gets upset and want to, smack them, but that doesn't help any at all. It's going to exacerbate the situation. So the issue is that when is a no acceptable, and you got to hope they're going to grow out of it, you're going to direct them, it's age 2, because 2-year-olds going to tell you no.
Right.
When you get 3 and 4, and when you say 3 and 4 years old, saying, we got some problems. We have some problems. That means more guidance has to occur, more direction, positive direction has to occur. And the parents have to also be calm when they're doing this. It is not like, what you just tell me? And some of our parents, they use profanity to kids, they kind of cuss them out a little bit, and that doesn't help. Because
those parents are.
How can you talk about respect and you just disrespected them?
Right.
Are y'all with me? So we have to model those behaviors. We're talking about the foundation. What happens to children who are disrespectful? And we're going to get to where Jackie is leading me to. The other thing is that I want to paint the picture that there are 2.1 million children who end up in the system. Paint the picture that many of them are girls who may get to diversion programs and the boys are detained. Getting to the girls are the fastest growing population that are entering the juvenile justice system. And then to the next point, that minority children are overrepresented in those categories. And Jackie, so when you talk about the minority children, to the people who believe it's a child's problem, they're going to say, oh, so does that mean that Black children are more disrespectful than other groups of children? Are you two where I'm going with this right here?
I see exactly where you're going, and that, of course, bridges a whole lot of things in terms of why minorities are overrepresented in any of these categories. And important to point out that distinction, Dr. Miles, that it doesn't mean that they are more disrespectful. It just means they're more likely to be held accountable for that. Because again, in other communities and in other subgroups and demographic groups, we don't see the enforcement of consequences as consistently or as often as we do with minorities.
But also we see the generalization. Guess what? So since they're being arrested, that means that Black children, especially Black boys, are more disrespectful and are more dangerous than anyone else, versus looking at the causative factors. What causes him or her to be that way? Is it economics? Is it and economics is really the base of it. Is it education? What are the causative factors? And so you talk about symptoms. I'm going to talk about the symptoms. I'm going to also talk about some of the causations, some of the causative factors. But I wanted our audience to sort of get this a little bit. Now, I hope they're seeing the picture I'm trying to paint.
And let's, on this very point, Dr. Miles, let's not forget, this is also representative of early untreated trauma. And that touches every conversation we have because, of course, our focus is children. And so when you've got a child later on acting out disrespectful or otherwise, not respecting authority, sometimes you've got to back that up to a trauma or behavior, as you pointed out, that they're responding to something else.
But I want to say this to, I think, foster parents who, because many of them are on with us tonight, Jackie, is that they're usually very cautious. And I'm saying, folks, don't be cautious. Those kids in your house, they're going to follow your values and your rules now. So don't be saying, oh, they're in foster care, so I can't do this. They're in foster care, I can't do that. My point is, as a foster parent, your role, again, is to set the model. It's to set the model. Now, whether they
And
get it
very
or not,
often they're there because that's exactly what they need.
yeah.
Right. They
With the
need
whole,
boundaries. They need consistency.
with a whole lot more. So parents, what I'm clearly trying to do is empower you all to take a stance, Don't be afraid, because you have a set of values, you have a set of beliefs, you have a set of behaviors that are acceptable in your home. And that should be made clear front end. And, you're going to make adjustments for the kids, but you're not changing for them, folk. And that's the biggest mistake you can make. Don't start, I'm talking about foster parents now, do not start changing yourself to accommodate the child. The goal is to get the child to change themselves and their behaviors and to accommodate change. That makes sense?
And right. And of course, the overall goal being to have the child have positive and, culturally acceptable behaviors, but certainly to respect authority.
All right. So the goal is, one, to get kids where they're respectable. And when I say kids, I'm going to talk about it in categories, in stages of development, because with the younger kids, they're much more able, we can work with them. But when the child becomes a teenager and they're disrespectful, not going there yet, but I'm sharing with you how we're going to break this thing up. So we're still talking about what happens to them because of the disrespect. We paint the picture of how certain groups of people are generalized by saying, oh, the reason they are arrested because they're worse than other children. But then I want to get into where Jackie was leading us to, and that is causation and
Indicators and
how do we handle it?
Right, how to handle it.
Yeah.
Especially, Dr. Miles, when we start talking about teenagers. We could do a whole show on addressing disruptive teenage behavior. In fact, I think we have, but go ahead.
Yeah, we have. The thing too, I think sometimes parents feel guilty about stuff, and they allow their kids to get away with anything, and they say, oh, this child's just like me. Well, no, they're not just like you, because you're responsible, and you're taking care of things. And I want parents to feel good. Oh, guess what? I know what they're going through because I went through that. But guess what? Times were different when you went through it.
Right. And you know what? And the fact that you went through it doesn't make it right.
Right.
Right. It was just as wrong when you went through it. So it's not something you want to pass on to the next generation.
But I think
a good point. Parents really need to be very careful about justifying their child's behavior because they feel that maybe they did the same thing.
Well, not only did the same thing, but they feel like they have a better understanding of what the child is going through. And so they can relate. And what I'm saying is that, why do you need to relate to that?
Right. And hopefully that better understanding includes an understanding of consequences and therefore teaching your child that it's not a good idea.
Well, to me, also, Jack, I'm thinking as a parent, my thought would be, if I went through it and I know I narrowly escaped it, I don't want my child going through this. So therefore, it may seem punitive, but guess what? There are certain things they're going to do and not going to do. There's certain things that you will tolerate and certain things you won't tolerate. And the disrespect is one, I think, it's according to your household. I'm just not going to tolerate, because when you do that, you're giving up too much control of your own environment. You're letting the child establish the environment for your home.
Yeah, and I just wrote down a note about do what's best for the child. And very often, and this is a mindset, honestly, from birth, and you mentioned it earlier, realize that the child is not going to remain a child. Okay, you're talking 18 years best, but really 12 years, because once you get into those teenage years, they're often treated, in more of an adult fashion. So if you focus on doing what's best for the child, to Dr. Miles's point, then you're not going to focus on whether you did or did not have that behavior. You're not going to focus on how you felt when you did it. You're going to focus on that child and what's best for their development and for their livelihood.
Well, I think the worst thing the parent can do, though, when it comes to a child who's disrespectful, is to like ignore it and say, "Well, anything I can do about it, that because he got his daddy's genes. That's how his daddy people are. I can't change none of that." And the daddy says, "That's he got the mama's gene, so ain't nothing we can do about it. We're gonna just ignore it,
Dr.
and
Miles.
hopefully he'll grow out of it.
Dr. Miles. Dr.
Hopefully
Miles.
she'll grow out of it." Well, that's the reality of it. And guess what, folks? They don't grow out of it.
No.
They don't grow out of it. It gets worse.
Yeah, and the whole blaming the other parent, Dr. Miles, that's a bit comical there. I know it does happen, but I'm hoping anyone listening to this, would not only take this for themselves, but would pass it on to others. Rule number one, don't do that, because you're justifying it. You're justifying and legitimizing the behavior. Oh, well, you got that from them, therefore it must be okay because you came by it honestly. It doesn't matter where they got it from. They could have got it from a peer. They could have gotten it from a movie, a book. They could have gotten it from their parents. Wherever they got the idea that, not respecting authority was okay, is a bad place to get it. So that's why, to your point, parents need to first know what they're trying to communicate to their child and to not get sidetracked.
Yeah, one of our earlier shows, we talked about the pros and cons of parents becoming their child's friend. You remember that show we had?
I do.
And one of the biggest problems with this disrespect stuff, parents have established a friendship with their children from birth up to 12. And now the child want to cuss them out and call them names and be disrespectful. They're saying, "I can't tolerate it." When you've established a friendship with the child.
I'm not even sure how that's possible.
What is
communication and friendship are two different things, but a friendship, think about it. So you're 20 something, 30 something, 40 something, and you're establishing a friendship with a 2-year-old, a 3-year-old, a 4-year-old, a 10-year-old, a 12-year-old. That's not your role. If you're the friend, then who's the parent?
Yeah. And the age you're talking about, the friendship at that age is not, and the parents are reading all these books now. I mean, at the 2 to like 6-year-old, it ain't the friendship they're establishing. What they're trying to establish is that I don't want to give my child too many restrictions because it could hamper his emotional development. There's some people who believe that.
Mm-hmm.
But then it becomes, at a teenager, that's where the friendship becomes like, we talked about, they wear the same clothing, they hang out the same places, and then the child starts disrespecting the parent, and the parent saying where it come from. And what we said is that
you set a tone that says
you created it.
Right.
You created
from
this.
The beginning. You've been saying we're equal. We dress alike. I'm gonna hang out with you. You can hang out with me. Yeah.
I heard some parents say, and it's kind of interesting talking about this parenting thing. They say, well, when it gets to a certain age where my child can be at the same place I can be at,
it's time for me to stop going there.
It's time for me to come in. It's time for me to come in.
Of course. I've heard a lot of educators say that as well. When you get to a place where you start running into your students and the places that you're hanging out,
it's time to change.
It's time for you to make some changes. Yes.
So parents, I want to share this with you. If you thought the disrespect, I got to go back here now because I'm very serious about this. If you think the disrespect came from your husband's genes, and there's some people who really believe this stuff. Now I'm telling you, guess what?
It's in the DNA.
You're in deeper trouble than thought. Because it came from his genes because the child sees how the father treats his mother and how disrespectful he is to her.
Yeah, that's not DNA. That's environment.
Or vice versa.
Right. That's environment. That is not DNA.
Definitely environment.
That is environment, and parents should know the difference. And again, yes, they will mimic what they observe, especially when I don't think parents realize that child is observing you from birth, from day one. So even as an infant, even as a toddler, if they're observing this and they continue to observe it, then of course it becomes their norm. And Dr. Miles, I want to just add something as simple as, maybe being pulled over, or, what you say when you pass an officer on the street, just all kinds of things can give that impression, just as we've talked many times about what you say about a teacher when a teacher's not present, what you
Oh,
say about the school.
we know what they say about the teachers now. We know what they say about the teachers.
We do.
And they're not. I said, now I'm educated. I'm gonna say, but they ain't too nice to the teachers.
No, they're not.
That don't know how to talk to nobody. That she ain't gonna be feeling my child. That So, like, where does it come from? But let's just expand this a little bit further. Not just when they get upset with the teachers, when they get upset with family members, and somebody really pissed them off. You really got them upset. And the child sees how all those words, and they got letters that ain't much in the alphabet they use.
Yes.
And then you want to ask the question,
where did they get it from?
And Jackie, children are now using the I'm gonna spell it this way, the BIH word. And parents know this. And they say, guess what? I'm gonna correct them, but I want my child to be expressive and not restrictive. I just say, get some bail money ready.
Right. I was gonna say, I mean, you certainly have that option, but there are consequences. At the end of the day, there are consequences for all of us, not just your children. For
there are things you can do also. I think that before I get to that point, I am actually treating a family that has this severe case of a 16-year-old who sees himself as being equal to the parents. And the parents have allowed it. And they agree with me that they made a very bad mistake. And so what happens, the 6-year-old now walks around the house, calls them names, challenges them on most issues. And I shared with them this past week that they've got to establish a set of family values for their home. The values help steer the child in growth. For instance, there's no name calling in this house. No name calling.
Right.
2, everyone will be treated with respect, and we will honor people's boundaries.
Right.
And then I'm simply giving them some ideas. Now to the child, he's gonna be saying, they done lost their mind. What are they talking about? We've never been this way. We've always been able to call each other's names, but the problem is, it comes to the boundary issue, and then one doesn't know when they're playing and when they're serious.
And what's another thing for parents to consider? These behaviors also carry over into their adult relationships.
Of course.
Right. So when you see them not being able to maintain, relationships, be it friendships or romantic relationships, again, that same sense of, entitlement, lack of respect, which is ultimately a lack of self-respect, is there. But, Dr. Miles, I wanted to bring up and comment on this concept of equality. Does equality also, if you're telling a child that we're equal, do they also have equal responsibility? Are you splitting the bills in the house? Or, because that's what equality means, if that's what you're doing with your child. So if they're going to be equal in terms of voice and behavior, are they equal in terms of accountability and responsibility?
Yeah. Check. I keep forgetting that our Facebook crew can't see you.
Oh my goodness!
So they're hearing.
We're going to work on that this week.
Yeah, we've been working on it for 3 months. Ain't figured it out yet, folks. But the point is that you're hearing Jackie Clement speak at this point. For those who can't see her on Instagram Live, they can see her. We will start having her be on Facebook Live with y'all. But when we start talking about this disrespect, we know what disrespect is. But the question is, do parents know what respect is? Can it be defined? You know what I'm saying?
I do.
How do you define respect? Is it that, the child just does everything you say do without question? Well, that ain't respect.
Probably, right? And Dr. Miles, let's take a moment there in order to answer that question, parents have to go back to their childhood, and they have to ask, right, were those things established in their upbringing? Because that's usually what, the problem is. They also don't know what it looks like.
So we're in trouble because some of our parents their parents didn't respect them.
Right.
and they didn't respect
So,
their parents.
right.
So I'm sorry, go
So in
on.
that instance, then you have to recognize that first. And to your point, which is where we were, is then you have to define what it looks like, what it should look like. You again, parenting is not something you can do willy nilly. You have to have a plan in place.
I'd like to ask our viewers to put in your chat box. Don't give me a whole dissertation now. But what do you think respect is? What do you think respect is from your perspective? And we'll talk about your definition. So why don't you just type in the chat box like what is your definition of respect? Because you can't expect to get something if you don't know what it is, and or if it changes every day.
Very true.
In other words, if it doesn't please me, you ain't respecting me.
I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to answer that as well, Dr. Miles.
Mm-hmm. I think it's kind of interesting. If it doesn't please me, it's not respect. But sometimes respect ain't gonna please you. It's just respect. Are y'all with me?
Mm-hmm.
Um,
I really do think that's, the guiding question that parents have to ask before any of this goes into place,
yeah, right.
what is respect?
Yeah, I think Jack. I think it's used to recognizing boundaries and kindness, and that's a key one. And it's also adoration. It is I trust you. It is I feel safe with you. It is you won't tell me to do anything that's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
It's the respect.
Mm-hmm.
And I can hear someone saying, well, guess what? That respect stuff got to be earned. I absolutely agree. I absolutely agree.
And
So
I want to add earned and taught.
yes, earned and taught. Earned and taught. And people, something, Jackie, I'm going to go back to a word that you use throughout our programming. We sort of act like raising children is like piecemeal. Like, okay, I don't know what I'm doing today, so we'll just get through the day. Yeah, tomorrow, I don't know where he's gonna be when he wakes up. But the key word is intentional. You gotta decide what you want your child to be like, and it starts people much earlier. It starts from the day they're born. What kind, what do you want your child to be like? Now, it doesn't always work out that way now, but at least you have some idea. I want him to be respectable. Some basic things. I want her to feel confident in themselves. I want them to be respectful, and I want them to be respected. Are y'all with me?
Mm-hmm.
So, but Jack, I guess we don't have this kind of conversation with our kids.
I honestly believe that because we also have this thing about, there's no manual. And I think because there's no quote unquote manual for parenting, we think that we don't have to be intentional or deliberate about it. And,
Right.
I want to share with parents, and you and I say this often, we're not here as some sort of experts as if we've done it all right. So much of this has been, we can be talking about things that we learned on our own, but be it,
Mm-hmm.
academically or in our relationships. But parenting does have to be intentional. I mean, it really is very much like saying, you get in your car to go somewhere. If you don't know where you're going, you don't know how to get there. And the same is with parenting. What Dr. Miles was just saying. Determine what you want the end result to be, and then you can determine what are the steps necessary to get there. But a lot of parenting is, I heard this over here and I heard that over there, and we're going to be friends, and I'm going to give my child a voice.
How about this one? Get your over there. You're going to respect me. I go, wait. You just disrespected him.
Yeah.
You just disrespected him, but you're saying, I want them to respect me.
Right.
Parents, you gotta keep your cool.
Yeah.
You gotta keep your cool, and you gotta have the child to know, not just the small ones, but the big ones,
Yeah.
that you're always in control of yourself, that you're always in control, and also let them know that you're not intimidated by them, and that you're not shocked by anything they say. Because if you act like you're shocked, what you're doing is exacerbating the situation. You're making it worse. So don't be shocked. Every moment is a teaching moment for you.
Right.
Every moment is a teaching moment.
Mm-hmm.
You gotta be cool, calm, collected.
Right. Look, even if it's fake, they teach us that as educators. When I first went in and took a course on substitute teaching, they said, walk into the room confident. They don't know what you don't know, but you need to always be respond that way to your children so that you can remain that authority figure.
But the other part too, yeah, some of this has to do with the child's development. Like kids going through puberty. Now you don't catch all right going through puberty. You know they're gonna be a rough one. They're gonna have
Yeah.
the moods going on, and parents, you gotta understand it. Okay, but
We talked about in one of our previous sessions, Dr.
mhm.
Miles, about having those guides that tell you what to expect at certain ages. They're not going to be absolute and perfect, but they're going to give you some idea. So when it shows up, again, you're an intentional parent. You anticipated some of this, and you had your response in place, or you had some of it.
Let's help our parents so that she can leave her husband alone. Talking about his family got bad genes, and he can leave her alone. Talking about her family all ghetto. All right, we gonna leave her alone. All right, all of them. So you can't blame each other for your child behavior and being disrespectful. We're not gonna teach people, Jackie, some things they can do. Some things they can do to help their child.
Okay.
And I'm gonna give you several of these things. And Jackie, you can jump in anytime you want to. I talked about having some values, right? Setting some the written values, and for parents who are have older kids, write the values down. I don't mean like with crayon. I mean like type them out and put them in the kids' room. Put them in every room. These are our values. And guess what? You ain't gotta talk and nag them. You ain't gotta talk and nag them. It'll be in their room. They'll see it every day. These are our values. And guess what? There's no excuse that I didn't know. Because it's in your room. All right? Stop and nag them. Set some clear rules, first of all.
Mm-hmm.
Set some clear rules. I just believe in making sure that my kids understood the rules of the house. Now, I'm a poster. I believe in just posting things. So I would always write things down, and each of their bedrooms, I would post, these are the values. These are the values. So I ain't got to be talking so much.
That's an excellent idea.
I made it very clearly. I put them in the bathroom. I put them everywhere they were because guess what? They'll say, well, I forgot. I ain't know.
On the refrigerator?
I'm telling you.
In the laundry room?
Anywhere they are. Anywhere they are.
On the mirror,
and they always
in the
refrigerator. They always in the refrigerator.
Right.
So post them there.
That's a good
Also make the most important thing, I think, out of everything else, Jackie, the parent has to stay calm. You can't fight disrespect with disrespect. And with boys, what they really hate, I should say just boys, and people in general, but I deal primarily with boys. They hate it, Jackie, when someone gets up in their face, on their space. And you're asking for trouble, parents, when you do that. So when you get in their face, you're threatening them. You're threatening them, and that most certainly is not respect.
And I tell you what, Dr. Miles, we said this before. For the people who happen to be on listening to this, these are not things that we had. These are not tools that you and I had available. And I sincerely wish there had been, shows like this to talk about parenting. It just wasn't out there. And this is, you're talking from practice, professional practice, parenting experience. This is real stuff. It has real impact and consequences. And so just knowing that one fact that you just said, that can make a world of difference when you're trying to teach respect for authority, starting with the parent themselves. So getting into their faces, telling them what to expect. Very important. So I hope parents are not only taking notes, but I hope they're going to put these things into practice.
Chuck, you said my 32-year-old son respects me. He comes on this show every week and says, hi, love you, bye.
Yes, I do. I like that.
So the point is, Jackie, what you said is kind of like amazing to me. You said that you wish you had known. But guess what? You're an educator. Guess what? But we don't see ourselves being educators at home because we'd be tired of educating everybody else's children.
No. I didn't say we should have known. I said it would have been nice if we had these
Oh, the
sort
show.
of
Yeah.
programs, these
Yes.
shows. I mean, and my point was that we shouldn't have known.
Right.
I mean, of course, professionally you get that training, but
Right.
most parents are not educators, and
That's true.
so right. And
They don't
Dr.
know.
Miles, even as an educator, you know, the specifics of dealing with teenagers, something about. I mean, hopefully, as an educator, you're not getting in anyone's face anyway. But when you're at
Oh,
home, you are in a different role.
go
Right.
on.
Do you know what I'm saying? I mean, there's just
Yeah.
a real big difference. As an educator, you hopefully would never think of that. Doesn't mean
Right.
that that's not something you wouldn't do as a parent. Because I
Exactly.
do think as parents, you know, parents often respond emotionally. We
Right.
know this. And we haven't brought this up yet, Dr. Miles, but some of this is cultural. And by that, it's passed down from generation to generation. And until it is questioned and challenged, or until you learn better, right? You're in the
Right.
dark.
What I'm gonna do, Jackie, I'm gonna go through these kind of quickly, right? And we're gonna
Okay.
talk about. We have about maybe about 5 more minutes, but
Okay.
I'm gonna give the parents some things they can do. All right.
Okay. Let's go.
One, we set some clear rules.
Right.
Next, stay calm. Stay calm.
Always.
Focus on the behavior, not the child. You are just so disrespectful. No, your behavior
behavior.
is disrespectful. You make me sick. No, your behavior drives me up the wall. You gotta make sure you delineate between the two, because the child then start thinking you don't like them, because you start tearing at their self-esteem when you get personal. You you're just bad. No, your behavior is unacceptable.
Like you said,
So
your behavior is upsetting me. Your behavior is out, not you. The very good point.
now,
Okay.
this is one I couldn't do. I wasn't saved when I was raising my children. But it says to ignore the shrugs. Now, the shrugs and the eye raises and the bored look were my triggers.
And Dr. Miles, same here. That's cultural. I mean, because we couldn't do that. And so, yeah, we have very probably visceral responses to shrugs, sighs, rolling eyes, all of those nonverbals. Absolutely.
I tell you, I just it was that and slamming doors. And now that
and
really
saying what?
Oh, stop, because I'm getting upset already.
You
And
know,
my
you
and
call
my
each other,
kids
they're
are
like, what?
my kids are
Excuse me?
grown.
Right. What? Like, who you talking to?
Parents, let me give you some breathing exercises. Breathe in, breathe out slowly 10 times. Don't respond. Don't say, what you just do?
Who are you
Don't do
talking
that.
to? Right.
Pray for me. Pray for me.
Hindsight,
The
2020.
shrugs and the eye rolls. Woof. All right. Back to being professional.
Right. Back to giving the right advice. Okay.
No, I'm going to say, no, don't do as I say do.
Yeah, don't do as I do.
All right. Sometimes teenagers are disrespectful without meaning to be.
Right.
You know, have you heard something say, you interpreted the wrong way? I didn't mean it that way.
Always.
And what's your reply? Don't tell them. Don't tell them. But the point is that oftentimes children don't mean to be disrespectful. They just forget who they're talking to.
Right.
It becomes
Going
so
back to
normal.
your point, Dr. Miles, of stay calm, be in control. Don't just react. Don't react emotionally at all. But certainly don't let the emotion be your leading, be your guide.
Or pull the educator role. Throw some questions back. Were you talking to me? I know you didn't mean to be rude. Are you
I know it
with
was
me?
not your intention to be
Right.
disrespectful, but however.
And don't say the sarcastic as I said it. You know, like, but I'd be like, I know I ain't just hear. No, my ears did not hear that. Guess your ears did hear it. So don't ask questions you don't want the answers to now.
Yeah, be careful of
But
that, especially with those teenagers, because they will give you just a straight an
oh
answer.
boy,
Right.
the
But
key
just some
thing is
ideas. Yeah.
the thing
Oh
is
yeah, popping the lips. Oh my goodness. Yes. Virginia Yes.
make sure
Sucking the
make
teeth.
sure you have some consequences for them. Now,
And let's
parents,
add predetermined consequences.
yeah,
So
yeah.
they know you're not rolling out some emotional response. This was already established that this is the consequence for this behavior.
But parents, I want to share this with you also. Uh, don't go crazy with the consequences because you'll be totally unaffected. Give me an example. I have 2 minutes. For the parent who, Jackie, takes away everything the child got as a consequence at one time. I said, baby, I said, at this point, what you going to use for the next time? You took away the phone, the television, his bed, the sofa.
The
I mean,
friends,
choose
food.
one, choose one thing that really means a lot to them as a consequence, and make that be for the fifth warning. So build your case. Don't just, okay, you acting crazy with this here. I'm taking everything. You be disrespectful to me. Well, you be disrespectful to my money. Disrespect me. You ain't getting nothing. No lunch. No nothing.
Okay, Dr. Miles. I mean, yeah, unfortunately it does happen. And again, we're not being critical of parents. I can tell you personally, I've had some of these behaviors, so but my kids are grown now as well. But this again is why parents need training and parents need information, because parents are also just human. And more often than not, they're behaving in the ways that their parents behaved. Just doesn't mean it was good. It means we
Yo,
have to do better. We need to learn.
and the biggest thing, Jackie, is to use humor. The child was rude. I know you must see somebody beside me because that was not directing me. You must be having psychosis or something because you can't be talking to me because there has to be somebody behind me you talking to.
Right. Lighten the mood while you're making the point.
Lighten the mood. Parents, relax a little bit. Relax a little bit. Jackie, I probably need a part two on this, but because we are out of time, and I dealt with some things they could do, but also things to avoid. Don't argue with the child. Don't be bad at the wrong time. We all have our times of day. We all have certain times don't bother us. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, I
Don't
do.
be always so defensive. You ain't gonna the parent. You ain't gonna control me. Then you go to your room, right?
Well, again, when you have that mindset of you being friends, you're actually acting like a friend at that point. You're not behaving
Oh,
like a
and
parent.
here's a good one right here. Come closer. Let me talk to you. Now, let me tell you what you are gonna do now. This is what you is gonna do. This what you ain't gonna do. Because I ain't going for it. You don't know who you playing with.
And you know what's really sad, Dr. Miles? We have to be honest. Those are very common responses. I don't know how many parents on with us or listening, are probably recognizing some of their own behaviors. And we're here to say that's okay, but you are here to learn differently and learn better and hopefully pass that on to the next generation. I can
Oh,
tell you I'm passing on some different stuff.
the
I,
nagging,
I don't want my children to be the parent that I was. Yeah, I want them
the
to be better.
nagging, and sarcasm. Folks, we're out of time. Got 1 minute before it closes down. Hey, listen, you've been great. But we're off next week. We had this whole entire series for the month of June. We're off. Have a wonderful 4th of July. Folks, throw us some money. Donate to us. You make me feel like I'm a person on the street and I got a sign up says feed me. Please donate to the foundation. We need you. Also, for those of you who've helped throughout my career, please become part of Dr. Willie Miles Alumni Association. All right. Hey, great. Jackie, any final comments? We got 1 minute.
No, been a great session. Maybe we should do a part two.
Yep, got much more to do. Hey, folks, be safe out there. We'll see you in 2 weeks. Have a great 4th of July.
Good night, everyone.